If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat O'Sullivan.
I was wondering if you were gonna what you're gonna do. Are you giving up? Is that what it is?
It's fucking pointless. It's fucking pointless. I mean, it's frustratingly pointless, and it's pointless. So.
It's so funny though.
I know. Well, at least there's an arc here. The storyteller in me can appreciate the ups and downs of this.
The life and death of Dr. X, guys.
This fruitless journey that I've gone on to absolutely fucking nowhere, and now I have another Twitter account that I don't know what to do with. Do I manage them both? Do I delete them? I honestly, I've said this to like so many people. Like, I just need someone to do my social media for me, or like I don't have to do it. I'll text you stuff, and if you think it's funny, you can post it. If it's stupid, just tell me it's stupid. Like I need like a social media handler. This is something I'm seriously considering hiring.
Maybe one of the listeners will take you up on the position. I don't know.
100%. Yes, hit me up.
Jason might. I know he's listening. He might do it for you.
Yeah,
he's awesome at that kind of stuff. Anyway, how are you? How are you doing? Did Jesus come to your house this weekend?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Easter. Yeah, it was all right.
Did Jesus come over for a different reason?
Well, I mean, he lives in my heart. I know. No, it was my kids are grown, so there wasn't a whole lot of Easter stuff. I had to do the Christian rock band thing at church on Sunday. My family and friends party was Saturday night.
Okay.
For my birthday. So that was the crescendo of
right.
Yeah, that was the kind of the culmination of the celebration. And it was crazy. It was a long day. It was a lot of drinking and partying. I did the math later on and realized I didn't eat anything all day, which usually is a recipe for disaster if you're drinking for like 6-7 hours on a completely empty stomach. That's not usually good. But man, I'm telling you, I woke up Easter Sunday like Christ rising from the tomb and was not hungover in the slightest. Was a little winded, but I mean, I was fine. I got up and went out and got everyone breakfast, and then took my daughter home, and then went and ran the soundboard for the Christian rock band, and like was just fucking firing on all cylinders. Came home and did laundry and cleaned the house and played video games, and like, yeah, it was good. I won't comment on other people, but
younger than ever, huh?
Right. Like, it was nice. Well, I always feel like if you go out and you party hard, and this is something that happens, like, sometimes I'll have a few beers in the garage and the next day I'm like, oh my God, hungover.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, you hit it real hard and the next day you just brush it off. And I always look at the times when you brush it off as like, maybe that's the universe telling you like, no, you're supposed to have a good time. It's all good. You know what I mean? We'll pick up the check. Don't worry about it. So yeah, I was crisp and good. But I had a very interesting weekend in general the past couple of days. I guess there's a lot of shit I want to talk about. I got my second COVID shot on Friday, which
okay.
Also, yeah, that should have done me in too, because the prevailing theory is that second shot knocks you on your ass for a couple of days.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Has not happened at all.
Well, you got really ill with the first one, though.
Right. Yeah, which doesn't normally happen either. Usually people kind of shake off the first one and then get hit hard for the second one.
Yeah.
And not in my case. So, yeah, I got both shots now. I haven't turned into a werewolf yet, unfortunately.
Oh,
and I know. was really hoping to have my DNA altered, which if I did, we'll find out shortly, because me and you decided to pull the trigger on that the DNA test thing.
I'm so excited. I have not. I know you sent yours. I have not. I'm a bad person, but that's okay. I don't know if we'll get them at the exact same time because the time varies greatly, it seems. So I don't know, but the sooner I get it in, the sooner I can get it back. I've been having issues with my vehicle, so I've been dealing with that. That's been wonderful. Nothing
Gotcha.
crazy, just, fucking adulting, I guess. But, yeah, we're going to do the genealogy thing. I'm really excited to talk about. I definitely want to get into like, you know how they've solved like cold cases and shit with this stuff, and the fear around the big database and
Yeah, I mean, this
the
no
genealogy.
raping after this. I mean, not that it was like on my bucket list anyway, but this definitely is like paint me in the corner where I got to be a really good boy from now on. With crime in general, like I just no leaving DNA behind because it even says when you do it, which I was like, I almost wanted to call you when I was doing it because I'm like, do you know these fucking questions they're asking you? They want to sit, you have to consent to them saving your DNA for no less than 1 year, up to 5,
Yeah.
in a database to be used for like other experiments and shit. And they say that they'll contact you if they use any of it, but that's just to let you know that they're doing it. It's not to ask your consent again.
Yeah.
Which I don't. I mean, at this point, I was like, I already bought the fucking thing. I'm not going to say no and then throw it out.
Right.
And if they clone me, like, I'm not going to know. Yeah, if there's another one of me walking around 100 years from now, like it's not like it's going to have my consciousness. It's just going to be another fucking jagoff, walking around.
I'm gonna for the merch. For the merch, we need to get a cartoon version of you holding up a little swab, saying "No more raping after this."
This is it. But sometimes I don't know. I'm not gonna fucking.
Don't. You've done enough.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're right. It is weird. But it'll be fun. We could definitely, we'll dive into that when we get the results back and kind of share what we found out and things like that. It'll be fun. I'm excited to do. I've wanted to do it for a while.
Me too.
So I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think that a lot of people end up being pretty pleasantly surprised with their results. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I figure by May we'll do the episode. I mean, once you mail it, so it makes you download the app. We use 23andMe.
Yeah.
That's the one that you picked. That I
not a sponsor.
Did not. Yeah. Well, you can if you want, but I don't. There's an app for it, and you can track the the delivery of the package and stuff through the app. So
that's really nice.
Yeah, mine looks like it's going to get to the lab on Friday. And then I don't know how long processing is. So I'm assuming that maybe by the end of next week, I should have my results. So I think
on this, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a. I don't think it's going to take super long, but once we have it, we can digest it and then do a show or whatever. And that's nice to have that like in the back burner too.
What's really cool, and I don't want to go too much into it because again, we're gonna do a show about it. But what's interesting is that Anne's husband. They did they got the test or whatever, and he was not able to do it because he had like he had a bone marrow transplant when he was a kid. Isn't that weird? Right. So he had another person's part of their body put in his body. So now his DNA is different? I don't know. I didn't look too much into it. I just remember her telling me about it. And I was like, well, that's really interesting stuff. I had no idea that would affect it, but yeah, apparently it does.
I could see them saying like, hey, look, if you've had any of these type of procedures, which might have even been on the disclaimer that they make you acknowledge when you read it that I just scrolled past for the most part. I could see them saying like that could, not that they won't do your test, but it could affect your results. Like if you were 100% Irish, but you got a bone marrow transplant from, a Jamaican dude, like you could register as having Jamaican DNA when you don't really have Jamaican ancestry per se. It's just the this other person's body inside your body.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought that was really. I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting. What else you got on the docket there?
Do we want to talk about Godzilla versus Kong, or has that already played out?
You know what? Yes, let's talk about this. That's so. You're right about that. Do we spoiler or do we not?
Yeah, fuck it. At this point, it's been out for a week.
It'll be their fault. Well, spoiler, guys. I think it would be safe to say to skip ahead. I don't know. We'll just say 10 minutes just to be safe. If you don't want it to be spoiled, but we're going to talk about Godzilla versus Kong. Go ahead, Pat. When did you see it?
5 minutes. I don't have that much shit to say.
All right,
Um,
you're right, 5 minutes.
I think it came out on Wednesday. We didn't watch it the first night because I had something else to. Oh, I went to for my birthday. My wife took me to a Schitt's Creek pop up that they were having here in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't know if you watched the show, but it's a very, very, very funny show. And the pop up was pretty cool too. Those are really popular around here. There's like a Saved by the Bell one. There was a Stranger Things one, and we went to the Schitt's Creek one on Wednesday. So I did not get to watch it when it came out on Wednesday. However, we did watch it on Thursday, I believe, and which was my actual birthday. And I thought it was good. It was definitely a thing that I watched that I did not hate.
Okay.
I thought, like, since they rebooted this whole thing, I thought it I really like Skull Island.
Okay.
That's probably my favorite of the ones so far. The first Godzilla was kind of Skull Island I thought was fucking phenomenal. What was it? King of the Monsters? Is that
Yeah.
the second Godzilla one?
Yep.
That I thought was pretty good. I really liked the woolly mammoth monster that you saw in the background of a couple scenes and stuff. I thought that was really neat. This I thought was probably at least on par with King of the Monsters, if not better. I think the Kong stuff is really cool. The Godzilla stuff, I'm just kind of like, I've seen a lot of Godzilla movies over the years, and honestly, the reason I like the Toho Godzilla movies is not for fucking realism or dramatic depth.
Yeah.
It's because I like to get fucking whatever.
Yep.
Watch dudes in suits destroy fake cities, and you don't get that with this. But I thought it was cool that Kong had an axe. I thought the battles were neat. The fight at the end I thought was great. I knew I called that at the end of fucking King of the Monsters. That's the direction they were going to go with it. But
With
I mean,
what, Mechagodzilla?
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that they were going to take the fucking head from Ghidorah,
Ghidorah.
or Ghidorah, whatever.
King
And
Ghidorah, yeah.
I think that was fairly well telegraphed, which was fine. I didn't need to be fucking surprised. But yeah, I thought it was good. I didn't hate it,
Yeah, I liked it. I did not give a single flying fuck about anybody in the movie.
100%.
The little girl was interesting, I guess, but only because it involved Kong. That was it. Other than that, I could care less. I don't know. I still don't know who the fuck any of these people were. I mean, those one guys, man, they were podcasters, or that one guy was a podcaster. He was so important. I don't know. I really have no idea. I just know that one guy had a podcast. That's it. That's the extent of it. And, but it's hard because, because King Kong versus Godzilla was such an important movie to me as a kid. Like, I had the VHS tape. It was the first Godzilla movie I had ever watched. Well, actually, I technically Mothra was the first, in that universe that I watched, but I didn't know it at the time. But King Kong versus Godzilla was the first one. I owned the tape and I ran that tape. I mean, just until it was dead, and I loved it. And that kind of, kicked off, of course, for me being a 90s kid, Godzilla was also huge, or not Godzilla, Jurassic Park was a big thing. And, I love dinosaurs. And so I was like, oh, a big lizard, great. And also a big monkey. It was great. It was wonderful. And so, it really started off my, my relationship with these movies. So when this movie was announced, I was really excited. I couldn't wait for it to come out. And then it came out. And I think that the hype behind it kind of ruined it for me. It's not that it's bad. It's not bad at all. You know what? It's a fun popcorn flick. I didn't mind the violence, the monster fights. I wish there were more of them, but I just didn't care about the characters. I have not seen the other legendary movies. I haven't seen Kong. I didn't see the first Godzilla. I didn't see King of the Monsters. I did, however, watch Shin Godzilla back in 2016, and that was fucking great. Now, granted, that's a different universe, but as far as like a modern day Godzilla goes, that movie was amazing. This one was okay. I didn't mind it. I think I gave it a 6 or a 7 out of 10, something like that. But
that sounds about right. Shin Godzilla I never watched because when it premiered at some festival that a friend of mine went to, and her response, her description of it was that it was like Godzilla versus paperwork. Like, it was all about the bureaucracy of the human beings in a world where Godzilla exists and where the government has to deal with Godzilla. It's been a while since I read the review, but that was the gist that I got from it. Would you
Okay.
agree
Yeah.
with that at all? Okay, but I
Yeah.
still, but in the lead up to this movie, obviously there was a lot of people reflecting on pre. Hold on, I'm gonna sneeze.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you again.
Thank you. There was a lot of people looking back over the Godzilla movies and talking about their favorites, and Shin Godzilla popped up on a lot of people's lists. So it made me think that maybe it was time for me to actually sit down and watch that one.
Well, because it's like if Godzilla was a horror movie.
Really? Okay.
It's really good. Yeah, you just watch. You know what? I'm not gonna say anything else. That's your homework this week, Pat. Go watch Shin Godzilla. You talk to us next week about it and see what
Okay.
But I have noticed, Brian is a very big Godzilla fan, and he has kind of made me feel badly because he's made me realize how much Godzilla I haven't actually watched, and I feel like I'm doing a disservice because I do consider myself a big fan. I haven't seen a Godzilla movie yet that I don't like.
We had there was a video where we grew up. There was a lot of mom and pop video stores, and they all kind of had their different area of expertise. And there was one video store, Popcorn Video, that had the Godzilla movies, and they had fucking almost all of them. And I had a friend back then in grammar school that was super into Godzilla and saw probably all of them. And there was just too many. It's like the James Bond movies, like. Kind of like James Bond, but like I haven't fucking seen all those movies, and I have no desire to sit there and watch all of them, And Godzilla was kind of the same thing, and honestly, half the time I try to talk to people about Godzilla movies, I realized that I'm actually talking about a Gamera movie that I saw on MST3K or something,
Right?
It all kind of just blends together for me. That whole genre, and I mean, if people that are super invested in it, like that's cool. I don't shit on it or anything, but I guess I just watched other stuff.
There's a lot to it. I mean, I think that, for one, I didn't have it because, I was a poor kid and we didn't really get a lot of media anyway, and they were hard to find. We didn't have all the Godzillas available on VHS, and so, but I always liked everything that I've watched. And, now as an adult, I just realized that there's so much of it, but that will be the next big kind of, movie watching project that I take on, I think is watching all of the movies, all of them in the MonsterVerse, and just going through them all. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
But it'll definitely be, a big feat, but I'm definitely not a purist. I'm really not a purist with a lot of things, in general. So just let fucking people enjoy stuff. You know what? If Godzilla versus Kong is your first Godzilla movie, then so be it. So what? Enjoy it.
Check out Skull Island though if you get the chance, because it's a period piece. It's set in the 70s during Vietnam. Samuel L. Jackson's in it. John C. Reilly's in it. It's very. I dug it. I dug the shit out of it. I thought it was really cool. We saw it in the theater. It's probably my favorite of the movies leading up to this. So
okay, all right.
I highly recommend that.
Yeah, there was our hot take on Godzilla versus Kong. So that was.
One more thing that I wanted to talk about in the intro is I finished reading this book by William Forston, who's a guy that's on Coast to Coast AM all the time, and it's called 1 Second After. And it's about the if an EMP pulse, if somebody detonated a nuclear bomb in the atmosphere above the United States, and when a nuclear bomb goes off, there's an EMP pulse, and it basically disables everything with a microchip in the United States and completely cripples the country. And the book starts 1 second after this happens, right?
Okay.
And at first the characters don't really know what's happening because it's the thing is that it could go off. It's in the book. It's fired from off a shipping container on a boat in the Gulf of Mexico, and the story takes place, I want to say like in fucking Tennessee or something, but so they don't see the nuke go off, right? Okay. But everything's still affected by the EMP waves because it's in the atmosphere above, and their cars stop working, their cell phones stop working, there's no electricity, and just basically how society unravels. And the book takes place over the course of a year, and it was one of the best books I've read in a very long time, and it's something that has been on my reading list like forever, because like I said, this guy's been on Coast to Coast AM a
Yeah.
million times, because this is something that like a lot of people say that our country is legitimately vulnerable to.
Yeah.
Not just necessarily EMP pulses, but solar flares, anything that would take down the grid, because we don't. This, and Biden is actually just in the, not to get super political, but like trying to pass a bill to invest like trillions of dollars into our infrastructure for the country, because we do have so many utilities and roads and stuff like that that are just kind of aging, and we don't necessarily
Yeah.
put the money into it. And because stuff crosses state lines, one state's going to invest so much, and the other, it has to be done at a federal level, like across the board, and that's something that we're trying to do now. And I think that it's very important that we do it, especially after you read this book. And this is something that pops up in a lot of conspiracy theories, a lot of doomsday preppers and stuff, where they build these bunkers where they stockpile all this like canned water and food, and they make Faraday cages where you can put things in it and it won't be affected by the EMP stuff. And it was I read a lot of different shit, and I don't just read like conspiracy books and shit, but it was one that I actually just finished this weekend, and I enjoyed the living shit out of it. So
Very neat. Well, one more time, what was the title of that book for people?
1 Second After, and it's by William Forstchen.
Well, perfect. You guys should check that out if you're into the whole conspiracy thing, and we know you are because you're listening to the show right now. So,
Okay. What about you? What do you got?
Oh man, I got a lot. I had a big deal happen yesterday, and I don't want to jump the gun too quickly and call this something without knowing what it was. But I was driving in the car with my daughter. We're driving down a pretty well-traveled road, so other people were there. And while we're driving, we see this huge fucking bird. Huge fucking bird. Okay. And at first it's like really high up in the sky, right? And then it kind of starts coming down, and it tries to land on this utility pole. You know how utility poles are like T-shaped?
Mm-hmm.
The wingspan of this bird was twice the width of that T shape across. It was huge. It couldn't land on the pole.
Wow.
And then it continued to fly off. And I know, guys, of course she says that she saw this thing. I was driving. If I could have, I would have taken a picture. But I was like freaking out. I was giddy. I was like, oh my God, it's something. It looked like it really like, and so that's now what I've been doing is try to do, identification, see if it's something that we know of. But it looked like a giant black crow. That's what it looked like. Just all black, completely black, shaped like a crow, giant black crow. But crows aren't that big. I know they're not that big. Now I'm trying to figure out, and maybe one of the listeners can help me with this. I have not been able to find out yet. I'm trying to figure out what the width of those utility poles are. Now, as I was driving down further, I'm noticing that different utility poles are different sizes. So I don't know. I may just call my local electric company and ask them and see if maybe, I'm sure they have dimensions on those. But it was a fairly large pole. Now, my daughter was also in the car. So I point out this bird to her, and before I really say anything to her, I ask her, did you see this? What did you see? And she says, it looks like a huge black crow. And I'm like, right, that's what it looks like. And so I don't know yet. But I'm going to try to research it more. I am supposed to record tomorrow evening with, our lovely friend V again for her show, Life Paranormal with V. And I hopefully will have more information tomorrow when I record with her, but this just happened yesterday, so bear with me. But I definitely want to reach out. I know other people saw it. I know they did because they were driving down the street with me. So, and I know the exact location. So I'm going to kind of go back and try to, vet a little bit and see if I can find out anything. But very cool stuff. I'm excited about it.
So what's the weather like by you right now?
It is 70s, and it was 70s yesterday.
Okay. So, and this is like, we're kind of in the same climate region, but
yeah.
So this is like the first warm spell that you've had this year.
Pretty much, yeah. This has definitely been the night. I mean, we've had, Midwest, we've had off days randomly, right. But we've pretty much been consistently in the 70s for the past week.
Yeah, we're definitely moving into spring, so maybe that, that could, assuming that it's not like a completely paranormal creature,
right?
But I mean, you look at it like this: if it was, like a natural, like it just, I mean, obviously a big ass bird,
Right.
but you know, it could be out and about because we're
It
moving
could
into
be.
spring. So
Yeah,
that,
it's that time. We're starting to get the, the ducks and the geese are starting to come back and things, so it makes sense.
and when
I
you
definitely,
compare,
I want to rule it out. I want to make sure that couldn't have possibly been anything. At minimum, though, what I figure is that those utility poles across, they're probably 4 to 6 feet.
well, I mean, I'm not saying it's not a Thunderbird, but I'm just saying that, like, you know, as far as it being like an apparition or something, or like, you know, like a demon.
Other people saw it,
Just,
yeah. Well, my
yeah, I'm
kids
saying
saw
like,
it, so that's good, and I definitely like, I wanna ask around, like, we've got that Neighbors app, I wanna ask because it was in my neighborhood. I'm gonna ask around there, see if anybody, because then it flew off into the neighborhood, and I'm kicking myself in the ass because I was driving my kid to the doctor, and, I'm trying to kind of grapple with what I just seen, and I'm driving, and I'm like, "Do I turn around? Do I just continue about my day? What do I do here?" By the time it had really kinda settled, I was already, in the car, I was already too far away to really, because it was probably long gone. Because I saw it, it took off into the neighborhood, it was gone, you know. But I'm sure other people. I mean, I'm positive other people had to have seen this thing. It's so
that
big.
that Neighbors app is not a bad idea. That would be an excellent
Yeah,
resource to just
yeah.
throw that out there and see what you get. Because I mean, honestly, in my neighborhood, they use that thing for coyote sightings all the fucking time and
It's
lost cats and
same for
stuff.
us. For also we have wild turkeys, so
What?
yeah, we do.
So now, when you say that it was like a giant crow, so it had a pronounced beak, right?
Yes, yes,
And it didn't necessarily have like, because like when you talk about the Mothman or like a giant owl or something,
right,
the head is like kind of like in the shoulders because
right,
that's how Mothman or an owl or whatever looks.
right.
But this it had like, you know, a little bit of a neck
Yes,
and yeah, like a head that
shape.
came
Yep.
out. Yeah.
Shaped exactly like a crow. I had kind of seen it because it was kind of flying around. It was flying around for like a minute, and I was like, "Damn, that's a big ass bird." But then it started getting closer, and I realized, wow, that bird was really high up. And like I said, trying to land on the pole, and then it decided not to, and then it took off to the neighborhood. So when I'd kind of seen it, when I kind of saw it like take off into the neighborhood, I could see like its body thickness. It was like a thin kind of bird, like one of those birds that like you draw on like a paper. If that makes sense. It wasn't very thick, is what I'm saying. It didn't seem to have a whole lot of muscle mass or anything to it. Definitely wasn't any type of condor. It had no other markings on it. It was just all black, very prominent kind of wings, feathered wings. It just was very. There's this very famous picture of this guy standing next to a replica of what is a teratorn, and that's what it looked like.
A Teratorn.
That's what it looked like.
Okay.
Teratorns are prehistoric birds. They exist in our fossil record. They're the Thunderbird. That's what a lot of people think that Thunderbird could be, are Teratorns that are still around, and that's what it looked like. I'll send you the picture. But
I'm
and
looking at it right now.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
they kind of look like. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
it looks just like a crow. That's what it looks like.
Wow.
But I'll share it when I share this episode. So if you guys see that picture, this is why. But yeah, it was wild. It was insane. I was so excited.
Have you been like Googling it? Like Dayton, Ohio? I'm gonna look at Dayton, Ohio. Oh shit, should I not say that?
Oh no, it's okay.
Okay.
I'm pretty proud of being in Dayton, as horrible as it is. I've tried to look up like different. I've been looking up like different species of bird in Ohio. I've seen nothing that looks like it. Crows, they get their wingspan is upwards of 16 inches, so it's nowhere near. So what I was saying about that was that if the pole, let's say the pole is 4 inches across, right, then that's an 8 foot wingspan. That's not crazy. That's not crazy unheard of. But the
Right.
thing is what kind of black bird has an 8 foot wingspan?
Sure. I mean, at the very least, it's a fucking giant bird. I mean,
It was,
even if
yeah.
it, yeah,
So I don't know. I'm gonna figure it out more. Like I said, I'll probably call the utility company tomorrow, and then definitely hit up the Neighbors app. And hopefully by the time I hit the show, I've got a little bit more to share. Even next week, I'm sure I'll have plenty more. But that is my current state of investigations. Is this giant bird? Because again, I'm positive other people had to have seen this thing.
right.
There's just no way, or at least not. Maybe not yesterday at that exact time, but have seen this thing around the area. So we'll see. But that's what happened yesterday. But I do have some 40 news to share here real quick.
Okay.
And I have MUFON, MUFON, right?
Sure.
The big UFO people. They are moving back home to Cincinnati, Ohio, about 40 minutes away from me. Which is interesting. So they're moving their headquarters back. I believe they're currently in California.
Okay.
But they are coming back home, and again, because they're 40 minutes away from me, they're now 40 minutes away from the Air Force Base. So they are basically right where they need to be. I think that's exciting. I'm not crazy about them, to be honest with you. But the thing is that they are probably the largest UFO organization out there. So, love them or hate them, I think we still need them in this kind of setting. So,
okay.
Let me see here. What else did I have?
I actually thought about joining them for my. Well, not like we're not friends anymore, but a friend of mine that I used to be real close with, for her birthday, I was going to get her a membership, and because there's a chapter right here, like on the south side where we live, they're based out of Orland Park, and we were going to go, but it was like $100 a year, and I was like, okay, well, what do I get from that? And she's like, don't waste your money, just take me out and get me wasted, because honestly, like if I go to like 2 meetings, I'm sure people are just going to creep on me, and I don't want to deal with that. So.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, that's
right.
I mean, you still can though. They will train you to become an investigator with them. So I mean, definitely, check out the website and stuff if you guys are interested in something like that. Or what, I won't make that announcement yet, but you could have the chance to work directly with me also. But we'll get into that eventually. Another piece of news here, some Bigfoot news. I know everybody's excited about.
Yeah.
Connor Flynn, who is an alleged Bigfoot researcher, claims that he has found a Bigfoot thumb. Have you seen the story?
No.
Yeah, he says that he has found the thumb of a Bigfoot. Now it does appear to be something. It seems like I guess he found it in like a creek or something, and he thinks it's a mummified thumb of a Bigfoot. He's taking it to be DNA tested. So
good.
I don't have high hopes. I'll be honest with you. It's probably just a piece of weird driftwood.
Right. Well, what made him find this thing in a creek and say this is a mummified Bigfoot thumb?
I guess because he's looking for. I mean, it's one of those things, just like me, and I've allegedly seen the Thunderbird or whatever. It's like, oh, of course, So I can't be too judgmental. I mean, it's not like
Whoa, I would not make that comparison at all. I think what you experienced and what he claims to have found, like you saw a giant fucking bird. Like this guy found something and he's like, I think this is a Bigfoot thumb, or it's a like deer turd. Like why?
Right? Who knows what it is? Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think the thing about it is that that's our job to find these things, right? So is it really that far fetched that he may have found a Bigfoot thumb if he's out there looking?
Well, if he saw it fall off the Bigfoot hand, then it would make perfect sense. But if he's just finding it now, he says it's mummified, so it's from 300 years ago. Like, I would want to know. I'm glad that he's going to get DNA tested, but I would be curious about what evidence he saw to make him make that connection in the first place.
Because of what it looks like.
All right, fair enough.
It looks like a thumb, and it's huge though. It's like twice the size of his thumb.
Well, sure, it's a Bigfoot thumb. I mean, come on.
It could be a Bigfoot big toe.
Yeah.
Oh, who knows? But he's going to get a DNA tested. I'm excited to see what comes of it. Of course, I don't have high expectations. Things like this happen a lot. A couple of years ago, somebody's dog had brought back a hand or maybe a foot. Nobody really knows for sure what it was. Well, there's some speculation as to what it could have been, but they didn't know at the time what it was. And some people think nowadays that it could have been a raccoon paw. Or something like that, but nothing ever came of it. They say the government took it and they never gave it back. So nobody knows exactly what happened. There was like footage of this thing out there, but it just kind of disappeared. So I don't have high hopes for the Bigfoot thumb, but we'll see, right?
Sure.
More exciting news though. And I know a lot of people that listen to the show know kind of how I feel about this guy. We've talked about him quite a bit. Travis Walton. Bet you know Travis Walton, right?
Yeah. Well, he's never been in my kitchen, but I'm familiar with the name.
Yeah. You're not friends or anything, but yeah. Travis Walton. Mike Rogers, who was witness to Travis's abduction, came forward on April 2nd and recanted his story.
What?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What's this guy's name?
Mike Rogers.
And why? Okay, so keep going. So why did they do it?
So he went on Facebook. Well, he hasn't said. He's been extremely vague. He's just said that he takes back his statement and does not consider himself a witness to Travis's abduction. So he posted it on Facebook, and the comment section were going crazy, including Travis Walton himself. And Travis and Mike went back and forth arguing. Some people think that this could be because there are talks of a Fire in the Sky remake.
Right.
And they could be feuding because of money, because this whole kind of weird thing has had a lot of weird ties to money since the beginning of it. So there's still more to come out. I mean, since the story has broke, Mike Rogers has removed his Facebook post, but it's out there. There's screenshots, and but he continues to make comments on his personal page, and kind of calling out Travis, and they're all arguing back and forth. And Travis still maintains his story, but Mike Rogers says that Mike Rogers just says, I don't know if he was abducted or not, but I did not see him get abducted.
Wow.
That's big news. That's big news. A lot of people have taken this Travis Walton case and has really, used it as proof. But, here we are. And guess what? It's slowly, you pull that one thread and it all kind of starts coming undone. So, we'll see what goes, we'll see what goes with the rest of it. None of the other guys have come forward yet. I'm not sure if everybody's still alive. I think they all are. But, so far. And I think that Mike Rogers may have been the one that his polygraph test came back inconclusive.
He was the one driving the truck.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. I'm trying to see who played him in the movie. Robert Patrick, Terminator T1000.
Was he like the main guy?
He was the one. Him and Peter Berg were the two that were the most got the most screen time of his buddies. But I want to say he was the guy at the end because he felt responsible for leaving him.
Okay.
What had happened when Travis got out of the truck and went to go look at this thing and got hit by the light. Originally, it looked like he got. Have you still not seen this movie?
No, remember I watched most of it, then I stopped watching it, and then I only watched the alien scene.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, he was the guy driving the truck. So he felt some sense of responsibility for leaving him there, and so that's kind of the crux of the story too. Is him and Travis's relationship.
Yeah, I've never watched the book. I have never read the book, so I don't know. But yeah, he's pulled a statement. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that the timing makes sense if they're making another movie. You know what I mean? They're probably coming after him, and he's going to have to go through all this stuff again. He's going to have to go on more talk shows, and you have to think about why he would want to back away from it. He's already done a fair amount of press about it. He's been on Coast to Coast. I'm sure they interviewed him when the first movie came out in the 90s. So why does he not want to go through this again? Maybe he doesn't need the money. Maybe he doesn't feel like doing the talk show circuit. Maybe he doesn't want to expose himself to more ridicule. Yeah. Maybe he's just done with it.
Yeah.
That's a part of it too, is that, to have to kind of relive this trauma and the decision that he made to leave or to talk about it, even though I'd say the climate now is more conducive to that type of story than ever. Maybe he just doesn't want to fucking do it. And maybe that's his way of just saying, look, the movie doesn't need me to move forward. Or maybe it does. And maybe maybe this is a bargaining technique where he's gonna withhold, letting them use his story. Yeah, his name and his likeness. He's not necessarily a public figure. He wasn't convicted of any type of crime. So he's pretty much a private citizen. So I don't think they can do too much without his consent. using his likeliness in his story and everything. So maybe, maybe it's a negotiating technique for money, or maybe he just doesn't want to be fucking bothered, or maybe it's not true. It's one of those three things.
I wish he would say, that would definitely be nice. But he hasn't outright come out and said that Travis was not abducted. He just has said that he doesn't want to be a witness to it any longer. Doesn't want to claim to be a witness to it any longer. It's basically what he said.
Well, he never, that I don't think he ever really was. I mean, if I'm going, like, once again, I'm going off the movie, but the whole thing is that Travis got hit by the beam and seemed to be knocked back, right? It's not like he got like, drawn up into the sky, like in front of everybody. This thing shot a beam of light on him that kind of knocked him back into the brush. And then the guys in the truck just hauled ass and got the fuck out of there. They thought he was dead. They didn't know what that thing was in the sky. They got out of there. And then, then everyone thought that they killed him, and they didn't. And then 5 days later, Travis shows up.
Yeah.
And they were relieved that he was alive, but then he starts telling the story about being abducted and kind of tortured, or I don't know. I guess the movie is more horrific than what he says happened in the book. But, that went through all that shit. So then there was this guilt of like, we left you there to die, and why didn't we, come back for you, or, all this stuff. And they panicked, and he made a decision in the moment. But right, like from what I'm remembering from the movie, there was no like, oh, he watched him get abducted and then said, okay, he's in a spaceship now, and then went home. They just saw this thing that shot him with a beam of light, and that was kind of that. So him saying like, you know what, I never saw him get abducted, I can't claim to be a witness to that anymore. That pretty much follows like what I feel his original story was and what was shown in the movie.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more to that than that. Like I said, I've not watched every interview with the man. I have not read the book. But my understanding is, if you take that in consideration, maybe he's just fucking done with it. He's like, look, I don't want to go on Coast to Coast again. I don't want to do 1,000,001 podcasts about this.
So I shouldn't ask him if he wants to come on our show, or
yeah, I mean, you can ask him. You'll probably get farther than I will, but sure.
I'd like to hear a story. I really would. I'm really interested. I want to know why he did this. I want to know why he's pulling back from it. I think that him coming out and just directly saying why would definitely clear the air. I get if it's just a money thing, like a negotiations for profit, then I get why he wouldn't come forward and say that. But if there's another reason, I'd love to talk to him and see. But I'm excited to see where it goes. So, of course, I don't believe Travis's story. I think it's full of shit, but that's me. So for me, this is extra exciting, but I don't know. We'll see. And you pretty much called it, Pat. You said the show's going to be
45 minutes.
45 minutes. And then on to the show topic. So
without further ado,
we had a lot of news this week. But if you don't like this stuff, you're listening to the wrong show. I'm sorry. But if you do, you're welcome. But you're right. Without further ado, what did we talk about last week?
Drugs.
Oh, we did, didn't we? I'm sorry, I forgot. I've done a lot of drugs. That's my bad. But that was a terrible joke. You didn't even laugh. Wow.
I'm not going to support that. You got to learn. No.
You know what?
There's no participation trophies in podcasting. Either you get it right or you don't.
Well, anyway, so we talked about drugs last week, and this has kind of kicked off a special series of events here. This week, we're going to talk about something really fun. But you guys probably already know, because I'm assuming you can read. And the title of the show is MK Ultra. Do you know anything about MK Ultra there, Pat?
Yeah, I did a whole ton of research for this week's episode.
You probably know more about it than I do. I'll be completely honest with you.
I hope not. Otherwise, it's probably good. It's probably good we talked about something else for 45 minutes, because we're going to get this shit out of the way in 15. There's going to be a lot of disappointed people.
Well, so there's a lot to it, but there's not a lot to it. And the reason for that is because the majority of the documents for MK Ultra were actually destroyed in 1970. Was it 73 when this happened, or was it?
Right. It was right after Watergate. The CIA director, the director of the CIA realized that the fucking shit was about to go down, and he ordered all the MK Ultra files destroyed, and most of them were, but they still found a cache of some 20,000 documents
Yeah.
because they had been incorrectly stored in a financial records building, and were discovered after an Freedom of Information Act request was filed in 1977.
And that's very lucky, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that was really, and again, 20,000 of them. So that, that goes to show what wasn't in the records. Well, I don't think we'll ever really know. But what we do know is that MK Ultra is one of those things. It's kind of the holy grail of conspiracies, right? It's kind of one of those things. Everybody had been talking about how the government was experimenting with people and drugs and doing all this crazy testing and all that, but nobody really had any proof until the 70s, until almost the 80s even. But this had been going on since the official project had been started in 1963, but there's reason to believe that it was going on before that.
Oh, I have a date. I have an earlier date than that.
Oh, what's that?
Project Artichoke. Did you find anything about that?
No, I didn't. See,
So
more than I do.
Yeah, so it was a precursor to the program that started in 1951. And its basis was using drugs and drug addiction to coerce people into attempting assassinations. So not necessarily mind control in the traditional sense, to where we're going to like give you a bunch of acid and like fucking make you into a Manchurian Candidate, but we're going to use cocaine, heroin, to kind of get someone really addicted, and then use withdrawal and their dependency on these drugs to get them to do things for us. And through doing all this, and then while they were experimenting with different drugs and behaviors, they got a hold of LSD, and they realized that it was like you want to talk about the fucking Holy Grail. It was the Holy Grail of mind control agents.
Yeah.
And they began. It was a joint program with the U.S. Army. It was Artichoke used intelligence divisions from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and FBI. And then when the CIA got involved, they just kind of took control over it. It's notable that in 1952, LSD was increasingly given to unknown CIA agents to determine the drug's effect. And one record that they found states that an agent was kept on LSD for 77 days.
Well, there was 7 of them. 7 people in Kentucky that were on LSD for 77 days. And there was also a mental patient in Kentucky that did not know that they were given LSD and was
Right.
on it for 174 days straight of LSD.
Yeah, there was a lot of experimentation on not only government like employees, like people in the armed services and stuff, but I mean, who basically, when you join the military, you kind of sign your life away, and you could say, "My body is your fucking,"
Right.
to do what you want with. But the other people were mental patients and people in prisons.
Yeah, prisons,
That would,
prisoners of war
yeah.
as well.
One of the most famous candidates, which is why, like, kind of like, you had said that like this was something that didn't really come to light till later, but we'll get into it at some point. But there's a lot of like famous people that were involved with these programs. But as far as on the prisoner side of things, since we're talking about that right now, Whitey Bulger, are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
He was he participated in it to get time off his sentence with some whatever prison he was in, like in the 60s.
Wow.
So
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
and that's something that he talked about, which, I mean, and I didn't see anything directly linking this claim, but like, he's famous because, he was the New York mob boss
Yeah.
that was on the run for like 16 years, and the FBI never caught him. And the reason he escaped in the first place was because he was an informant, and his handler kind of let him know, like, hey, they're coming down with a RICO indictment. You need to fucking skip town. So he skipped town and was on the run for 16 years, which maybe he had government assistance during that time. Maybe he didn't. And then when he finally got caught, he fucking ratted on everybody and did books and interviews and whatever he could fucking get on. It was this huge media figure. I think they made an HBO documentary about him. He gets sentenced to prison. I don't even think he lasted one day before he was killed by the inmates, because he was such a notorious rat.
He was a big snitch.
Yeah, but I mean, who was also part of the MK Ultra program? So I don't know if maybe because he had done that, once you're CIA, you're always CIA, and that's why he was able to evade capture for so long. And then once he finally, because when he was talking about all the murders he committed, because he was this prolific hitman, he also was spilling the guts about the MK Ultra program and all the crazy shit that they made him do when they were pumping him full of acid.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't just LSD. I mean, LSD was a big part of it, because they kind of saw it as like, I think what they called it was the key to the universe. And, so they used that one a lot, but they would, they would inject people with uppers and then an hour later inject them with downers to see what happened. And like,
Well, I could tell you that. I mean,
I mean, it was, I'll be honest, let me just say this full disclosure. The things that they did to people was really, really sick. It really was. I don't know, we since we kind of talked about the drug thing, obviously, Pat and I both have experimented with a lot of things, in the past. And, I can't imagine ever tripping on acid and not knowing that I was. Can you imagine? That's gotta be fucking horrifying.
I think I told this story on the show once before, but I got drugged once, with,
Oh,
yeah. And, luckily it happened late enough in my adventures to where I knew what was happening.
yeah.
And I was able to kind of pull it together and just ride it out. And it was also very clear that, like, did they fucking slip me something in that drink? But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine like in the 50s and 60s though, where this shit wasn't commonplace. And especially if you were like some private in the fucking army, like you're not gonna know what acid is. And when it starts happening, you'd lose your fucking mind just because you'd be like, you'd think the world was ending, or you'd think that you were having a heart attack, or that you were losing your fucking mind or something. It would be absolutely terrifying. I
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't get, and this is maybe just me, being a goofball for a second, but I don't get how you would really use it to manipulate people, to break people. Yes. To totally destroy someone's like ego and personality and mind, and like give them severe disassociation and all these terrible things. Yes. If I was trying to break a prisoner and get them to tell me everything I wanted to know, I could see how this would work. But I don't see how I would use it to like brainwash someone into carrying out like a complex like infiltration assignment for me and then killing somebody. You know what I mean? Like that seems like
Yeah.
very, very wishful thinking if we're
Well,
using
I
acid.
think a big part of that, to answer that question, a big part of that is that during that time, this was MK Ultra was really a direct continuation of the human experimentation that was going on in the 40s with Nazi Germany and the Japanese. As a matter of fact, some of the people, and I know we've talked about on the show, but I don't know how much you know about Unit 741 in Japan, or actually it was located in China, run by the Japanese. Do you know anything about that in World War II?
No.
So we talk about it. I believe we talked about human experimentation on the show before. In World War II, people think that the Nazis were terrible people, but you guys have no fucking clue. Look up the Japanese. They were rounding up all these Chinese people and taking them to a specialized unit and conducting horrific fucking experiments on them. And once they were found out that that's what they were doing there, because it's the Japanese and because they have such an interesting code of conduct, they actually burnt the place to the entire ground. And a lot of the people working in that unit committed suicide so that way they wouldn't talk. Well, the unfortunate part about that was that a lot of their findings were also burnt to the ground. So what they say, the claim is that because they had direct human, guinea pigs to use for all these fucked up experiments, and I mean really, really gruesome stuff, their medical science was more advanced than we even are today. And they ruined it all. And so what they ended up doing was the really big higher up scientists and whatnot that were, leading this unit, ended up coming and working for the US government. And I would have to really go back. I didn't research too much about it. So they ended up working for the U.S. government in order, to get clemency, and so we never charged them. They were never held accountable, and it's been hidden, as a matter of fact, because our government didn't want people to know that we pretty much covered all this Japanese shit up.
Well, that's like paperclip. I mean, with the Nazis, I don't know if the Japanese side of that falls under the same operation, but I mean, that's very well known. Everyone knows our space program came from German scientists,
Yeah. It's pretty similar. So they come over here and then they start doing very similar stuff. Not as gruesome, I'll say that. Still pretty gruesome, but not as gruesome as what they've done with like the MK Ultra stuff. But at the time, the stuff that they were doing at the time was all very experimental, and it was just very out there and very just, let's just try this and see if it works. So I don't think that it's too far-fetched to think that, we would do something like LSD and think that we could create super soldiers or, whatever. Because they were just kind of trying everything. I mean, you had Mengele and his twins, and you had the Japanese and their Chinese people. I don't think it's that unbelievable to think that. I mean, I think that of course it is, it didn't work. Obviously, that's what they found, right? With MK Ultra, was that it didn't work anyway. But they did a lot of other things. I mean, MK Ultra also had their wing where they were testing out different interrogation techniques for prisoners, to get spies and secret agents and things like that to break. So I don't know. I think I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, I think it's not. First of all, I don't know how clear we made this. This isn't a conspiracy. This is something that really happened.
It is, but it started off as one.
Right. Well, yeah. It wasn't a publicly announced initiative, but these things never are. But no, this is 100% a part of American history and something that happened. And it's kind of going back to what I was saying about Whitey Bulger. Another famous person that was part of the experiments was Ken Kesey, who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And he was a custodian at a VA hospital, and that's kind of how he got brought into the program, where he volunteered for it. And they paid him. I mean, it's not like he did it for free, but he, they did experiments on him with acid, and they gave him, and just gave him. It wasn't anything like malicious as much, kind of like gave him acid, and then see how he reacted to it and stuff. And he had such a positive experience with it that, number one, he wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is a fucking American classic. And then number two, he went back to San Francisco because he was living in like upstate California, like Washington, Oregon. Went back to San Francisco and started bringing acid to people and doing what they called acid tests. And Thomas Wolfe wrote a book about it, the electric Kool-Aid acid tests. And this is where Grateful Dead came from, and the Merry Pranksters. I don't know how much familiar you are with like that whole scene.
Not actually.
Oh my God. So right. So acid was something that was legal up until the mid 60s, because it wasn't like it was just a fucking thing. Like if you knew how to make it, you could just make it. Yeah. And it wasn't a class 1 drug or anything yet. Right. So, Kesey is part of the MK Ultra experiments, has his mind fucking blown, goes back to California, says we got to bring this to the people, starts throwing parties and giving people acid to try to turn on as many people as possible to the beneficial aspects of it. And this whole scene develops around it in San Francisco, and that's where the Grateful Dead come from. Right. And then after they do this around the Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco scene for a while, they decide to get a bus, and about a dozen of them get on the bus, and they call themselves the Merry Pranksters. And they travel all along the West Coast and Southwest United States, giving acid to people in a way to kind of jumpstart the hippie revolution and expand people's consciousness, because they thought it was so powerful and so beneficial that that's how they were going to change the world, and they were going to change culture and society, was by throwing
Well,
these acid parties. So it's weird. It's so interesting that like that came from the same program where you had the U.S. government trying to weaponize it, and it ultimately, I don't know how successful it was. I think the instances where it was successful, and like maybe they got somebody to do something really fucking crazy because of it, which we'll get to. We might get to Charles Manson later, but like
I'll
there,
see that's what I was gonna do, but you
yeah,
know what? I'll wait.
but like so like there's that kind of stuff. I feel is probably like the successful stuff. That's the documents that were probably the first to be shredded, so we don't know as much about those instances, but I think it's interesting that like from the same program, people took the same drug and tried to use it as a good force, and ultimately I don't know how much they necessarily succeeded either. A lot of people put a lot of faith into LSD. They really fucking thought that it was going to completely change human civilization.
They did, yeah, I agree.
I don't know necessarily if it did or not. I mean, it had an impact, but people still pay taxes and drive automobiles. I don't think either side necessarily won.
We haven't transcended yet.
Yeah, we gained a little, maybe, whatever, but
yeah, that's true. That's true. Now I really want to talk about Charles Manson, but you know what? I think we should just do an episode on him.
yeah, I didn't read that. I didn't read that book. I really want to read that book that guy wrote about it, because he ties into it too. And I mean, I'm not even sure the extent of it because I didn't read the book.
Charles Manson has so many conspiracies and fun stuff tied into it. I think it would be fun to cover, and then maybe we'll save that. I don't know. I'm kind of winging this episode because there's so much to the MK Ultra stuff, because they had so many. We were kind of talking about it before the show, right? There were so many tangents to this. It wasn't just MK Ultra.
Right.
They had MK Often, and then they also had MK Chickwit.
I use MK Search because that's easier to say.
MK Search is easier.
Yeah, but it's the same. Yeah, they're the same like offshoot programs where they were trying. So there was about 150 other research sub-projects operating under the MK Ultra umbrella. And all of them had the MK designation. So like you just said, MK Often, MK whatever that one is that we didn't pronounce, MK Search. And they all kind of had kind of used drugs, but it was different ways to incapacitate the enemy, behavioral effects on animals and humans. It was all kind of in the same vein, but would take it in a slightly different direction. And
okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, and what happened with MK Often is the alley that ended up going down was, according to, and I found this out, according to one person specifically, Gordon Thomas, who was a British investigative journalist who wrote the 2007 book Secrets and Lies. He claims, and it's basically just him, that MK Often branched out to try to was the Army's was the government's, because I don't want to say Army because I think it might have been the CIA too.
Military?
But it was whatever, fine, perfect. Was them trying to use black magic, witchcraft, and the occult to harness the forces of darkness and challenge the concept that the inner reaches of the mind are beyond reach. Which is like very very salacious, and like when you hear that you're like, the CIA was like dealing with warlocks and they were talking to all these people. So like I like really looked into that because I thought that was like super interesting, and there's not a whole lot of evidence for it.
Okay.
And there was only the one book that was written.
Yeah.
And I watched a video on Daily Motion, which, like, I don't know if you ever go on that website. It's like I felt like I was a QAnon person, like watching shit on there, because it's like these like horribly produced videos of like guys in like very disheveled looking white men, like just kind of ranting at the TV screen while they show like clips of Beyonce dancing. and like some dude talks about Aleister Crowley and like Masonic rites and Luciferianism. Like it's not very convincing. It's just all very like
That's hella disappointing. I'm not gonna lie.
it is. It's super disappointing. But at the same time, I think that like there's elements of it that are kind of true because there is a huge, and this is I'm just gonna kind of mention this and we'll hit pause, but there is like very well documented stuff with Project Stargate. And have you ever seen the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats?
I have not.
Okay, so that stuff is all true, and Project Stargate and was this thing where they tried to. There was this one officer that wrote like a military manual about turning. He wanted to create. It was called the First Earth Battalion, and basically train soldiers to be like warrior monks and use remote viewing and like spiritualism and like basically like non-violent confrontation, like all these different techniques, like as opposed to just like building better guns and like better bombs and stuff, like different ways to like neutralize the enemy and like combat if you come into a hostile force, like how you can non-violently diffuse the situation.
Okay.
And they really spent time and money into this. In the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats, it was directed by George Clooney, and it's all based on a true story. And I've read the First Earth Battalion like training manual. Like you can get it on Amazon. Like they published it, and it's really fucking goofy. But you could see where like in the 70s they were just like, okay, here's $50,000. Go research meditation and how it can be used in combat, right? Or like like remote viewing, like okay, like here's $100,000, get 10 psychics in a room and see how much shit they can, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Of course they're going to spend money on this. They spend money on everything else.
Yeah.
And I think that stuff all really happened. But then when you talk about like you start talking about Masons and the Illuminati and the CIA and Beyonce, that's when I'm like, okay, now you're just throwing shit at the fucking wall,
I agree with that. I mean, I think that there's no secret that they've experimented with those types of things. But to what extent? I mean, the unfortunate part is that again, a lot of these files are destroyed. They're gone. We can't recover them again. So what was in those files? What were we missing? Was it more stuff about the occult or was it just more drug talk? Who knows? I mean, like you said, probably the worst of the worst was destroyed, right? I mean,
I would assume that's the first thing that you get rid of, yeah.
Right. I mean, whatever the worst might have been, but we don't have a way to go back and know. And so the only things that we do have are these weird, obscure people that happen to want to talk about it. And I mean, can we believe them? I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, the fact that any of this even happened at all and was, so super secretive is scary, right? I mean, it was, we should be concerned. I mean, again, MK Ultra itself is definitely the holy grail of conspiracy theories. It just goes to show that maybe some of these theories aren't so far-fetched because, they do have some type of truth to it. But I don't know. Do you think that we're still doing stuff like this today?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd almost be the way that one of the videos that I was watching when researching this show topic suggested that the reason that we started doing human experimentation with LSD was because the Russians were doing it. And
I could see that.
If they were doing it, then of course we had to do it.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to let them figure out that we can't figure out? So I think that it's almost irresponsible if you're not. When it comes to the things like remote viewing, I mean, there's been a lot of claims about that and how much that's being utilized in the intelligence community and the effectiveness of it. You know what remote viewing is, right? Oh my God. So remote viewing is like you sit there and you get into like this deep meditative state and you try to imagine a location.
Oh, it's like an astral projection.
Yes, that's basically, that's a little bit more woo-woo than they usually go with the explanation, but basically that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's astral projection, but people don't like to use that word, that phrase, because it makes it sound crazy, which it is in general, but like whatever. So yeah, it's astral projection. And there's been a lot of claims that like we spent serious time and money trying to develop these techniques. And if you think about it from the CIA's perspective, if this was something that you could legitimately train a human being to do, why the fuck wouldn't you train a human being to do it?
Yeah.
And if you know that two of your rivals are, if you know that China and Russia are spending $5 million a year to develop these techniques, why wouldn't you spend 10
Yeah.
or 15? Why are you going to let them to figure this shit out before you? So, but some people claim that maybe that's all just disinformation, and they want, and the reason these rumors get floated that other countries are spending time looking into this stuff is because they want us to waste our time and resources doing it when they're not even bothering with it. Right. So like, we have a spy come back and say, yeah, I found out that Russia is, trying to figure out a way to use Ouija boards to locate, like, enemy troop positions. Ouija boards, oh my God. All right, get us a truckload of Ouija boards and, take over a mattress store warehouse in Connecticut, and we're gonna get to the bottom of what these fucking Ouija boards can do. And really, that spy was just fed disinformation because the Russians want to laugh their ass off as we waste $15 million buying Ouija boards and trying to figure out how to get them to work. So like, there's that theory as well, right? That it's all just disinformation, and we tell these crazy bullshit stories just to try to get the other side to see what they'll fucking bite, and confuse the enemy, and really nothing's, traditional warfare is traditional warfare, and outside of drones and stuff like that, we really haven't evolved too much behind that. Or, there's all these crazy black projects that are trying to open up portals to other dimensions and utilize black magic and use psychics and all this stuff. I don't know. No one's fucking, I'm not privy to that kind of information.
Yeah, no one's really talking about stuff like that anymore. But the funny thing is that like a couple weeks back, I had mentioned a story about how scientists had found a way to interact with people that were sleeping and dreaming, and have those people that were sleeping and dreaming interact with them back. And I mean, isn't that kind of part of the same weird, dark, strange world of experimentation? And, aren't programs like that funded through the government? I mean, most of them are, except for they could have private investors and things like that. But most of them are grants, from the government given to universities and whatnot. So, I mean, in a way, we kind of still are doing these weird experiments. And like you said, I think it would be really naive to assume that we aren't doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But I think it's definitely, still going on. Definitely not on the scope. I mean, they aren't just feeding people LSD anymore. Are they feeding people other stuff? I mean, a lot of people question, like with the COVID vaccine and things like that. I mean, is there some secret stuff in there that we don't know about? Well, shit, probably.
Well, look at all the PTSD and stuff, where you have people come back from overseas and freak out and, shoot up places or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to be disrespectful, but like the fucking crazy number of veterans that commit suicide. I mean, that's like, that number is fucking astronomical. And maybe that's just because there's not adequate healthcare with the VA. I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions and stuff, but definitely there's something there. And maybe it's, I mean, I know that we've I don't know. I don't want to say it.
I have a weird story that I'm going to half-ass and I'm really going to butcher, but I do want to bring it up just because I tend to forget about it a lot. I have a friend who, one day we're all kind of sitting around in our group of friends and we're hanging out, and she mentioned something that was done to her in elementary school. And she was like, oh yeah, remember when everybody was in like second grade and they did like this thing? I can't remember what exactly it was. That's crazy. I'll have to figure it out for sure. But none of us there had experienced exactly what she had experienced. And thinking back on it, it was fucking weird and experimental and just odd. I don't know. I don't remember what it was though. I'll ask her. But she just told it like it was just, we were just sharing memories. And she's like, oh, yeah, I remember this. And we are like, no, that's not normal. Like, you were definitely part of some type of research group. It was weird. And so, I mean, that stuff, I think definitely does still happen. I mean, it just happens. I don't know. We just don't talk about it. We just accept that it happens. I'm not entirely sure. Or, you have people like my friend who, to her, it was completely normal. I don't know if she listens to the show or not. She might, but I'll get a hold of her and I'll figure out exactly what that was about. Cause maybe that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day.
Yeah,
But
that was a little bit of a fucking tease. Like, wow.
I know, I can't remember. I just remembered it the other day. I was talking to somebody about it. I feel bad for bringing it up now. I'm sorry, guys.
Man. I mean, but that could be, who knows? Who knows?
I remember it just being very bizarre. I mean, it was nothing like terrible, but it was definitely strange enough to make everybody go, we're pretty sure you were experimented on. And so I don't know. It was weird. And I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it as soon as I know more, I promise. But you have to listen to new episodes to get that information. But yeah, I mean, like, again, I think it's still, it's something that definitely we still experience, just not on the same scale that we were experiencing it on. So I don't know.
And what I was trying to get to earlier was Gulf War syndrome. And I didn't want to because I know that that's something that a lot of people dealt with, and I didn't want to be disrespectful by mischaracterizing it.
Oh.
So I looked it up real quick. And yeah, basically what happened is they had given a troops a pre-treatment to protect against nerve agent effects because they worried about them releasing fucking gas and shit.
Yeah.
And it ends up that the pills that they gave them to kind of potentially a potential vaccine not to fucking use that word, but basically as a pre-treatment, I guess is another way to put it, against potential nerve agents they could be exposed to, actually did more damage than if they had been just exposed to nerve agents. And it was because we were using stuff that we weren't entirely sure of, or maybe it was done on purpose. Who fucking knows? I don't know. But there's definitely a history of we give the troop shit and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's really I mean, it really is. I said at the beginning, but it's very disgusting how, the government treats people as property. And, I think that's where a lot of just all the conspiracies kind of are born from, is because we all know that, we're just a number in their eyes. And we know that because we see it happening time and time and again throughout history. And it's scary. It is scary. Can we trust them now? I don't want to say no, and I don't want to say yes. But definitely walk with caution on certain things. I mean, never be afraid to question. If you work for the military or something, and they're just like, "Oh, hey, here's a nice shot of vitamin B," I probably wouldn't take it.
Yeah, but I completely understand what you're saying, and I get why some people are. I mean, let's bring this to the fucking COVID vaccine, right? I just got my second shot on Friday, and there's people that are apprehensive about getting them, or that are going to refuse to get them. And I did it, but some people that choose not to, I can't say I completely think that they're crazy.
Yeah.
Or that I don't understand their trepidation, and I maybe I even kind of I don't want to say admire, but all right, man, you're gonna die on that hill. Okay, you feel really fucking strongly about that, and I appreciate conviction, even if it's not a conviction I agree with. I think people that feel strongly about something and are willing to make a stand, good for them. And this isn't a situation necessarily where it's life or death, but I mean, I guess it could be, because COVID's definitely killing some people. But think about it like this: what if you were really given a choice where you either had to take the shot or not take a shot, and the U.S. government was the person holding the needle? Would you take that shot, or would you be like, no, I don't fucking trust you? And the people that say they don't trust it, hello, look at the fucking topic of this week's episode. Do you think that are those people crazy? Are those people oh, you don't believe in science? Oh, you're fucking goofy. I get it. Now, I took the shot. I took it twice. you know. But maybe I shouldn't have, you know.
Well, I think the COVID thing, I mean, I think that would be a big, I mean, I think that you've said it, and you've said it perfectly. There's easier ways to feed us shit, you know, through the water supply or, you know, the food supply or whatever. I think like faking an entire virus just to create a vaccine, just to inject us with stuff is silly. I think it's really far fetched.
It's the logic doesn't track, yeah,
Right.
and that's why, like I said, I've gotten my fucking second shot. But
Right.
the people that
Are apprehensive.
I get it,
Yeah.
and I
I
don't,
understand.
yeah, I don't think they're necessarily stupid or crazy. I mean, you should be worried, but I think you also need to kind of follow things through. Like I said, and if they wanted to do this, they'd fucking do it. Which is even like more depressing.
Right, they could.
You
Right, they could just do
know?
it. I mean, and that's the thing about it, you know, again, let's reiterate one more time. MK Ultra is not some conspiracy theory. It is 100% factual, true information. This stuff actually happened to people. They were feeding people drugs unwillingly. They were subjecting people to experiments like they were experimenting with like self-isolation and like how long these people could go being completely by themselves with no noise, no windows, no nothing for hours at a time. They were experimenting with electroshock therapy. It's very, very real. And, you know, so let's not downplay the fact that this actually happened. And, you know, again, not to mention, we only have 20,000 of those documents, most of which were destroyed. We really will never know the full extent of what happened. But it's a very important piece of history. I don't know why they don't teach kids stuff like this in school. I mean, it's depressing, but you know, we definitely didn't even get down to the real, you know, the basics of how disgusting something like this really was and how it affected people's lives. You know, one guy committed suicide. What's his name? Frank Olson committed suicide because he was a military personnel because the depression of the effects of LSD afterwards really got to him. I mean, so you know, this stuff happens, you know, and you're more than welcome to read the remaining 20,000 pages on it, or you know, just read about it in general. But
Well, yeah, I think the reason that it's probably not taught in school is because we don't know the whole story. You know, we have fragments of it, but
yeah,
there's a lot of people, and especially as more time goes on, people that were involved in it are dead. You know, and you have the people that were involved in it and spoke out, like, you know, like I said, Ken Kesey, Whitey Bulger, Allen Ginsberg was another one. Not that he had anything super. I mean, he wrote poems about it and shit, but you know, he didn't kind of do what Kesey did or Bulger. Um, so there's people that were involved in it and spoke, but all those people are kind of dead, just died off. You know, I mean, we're talking about something that was 50 years ago.
yeah,
You know, so I think as time goes on, we'll probably discover less and less about it, and it'll just be this thing that, you know, we did human experimentation at one point. We did it with drugs, and you know, we picked on people that couldn't say no, or we used volunteers, and we kind of misrepresented what we were trying to do to them, and there was mixed results. You know, but yeah, I think it's funny that, like, you know, once again, going back to the LSD part, the drug part, is that there was something that was so interesting about it. There was something that was so, I mean, for lack of a better word, magical, that they were convinced that this was a tool, that this was something that they could use to change things. And everybody thought that. Everybody on the board thought that LSD was going to be the gateway to the fucking 21st century, you know?
yeah.
And like I said, man, I don't think either side got it right. I think they put a lot of faith in the fucking rat poison.
Well, that was what they ended up discovering was that at the end of the day, LSD was not a useful tool for them, and it just wasn't the way to go. I think that they did find, however, that it did benefit them to use junkies. I mean, for lack of a better term, you know, getting people addicted to drugs and using that to their advantage, I think worked a lot better. But then again, you can't create a super soldier assassin out of somebody who's dope sick.
Right.
You know, that just didn't make any sense. But you know, when it came to LSD, you know, they did find that it was unreliable, that there was, you know, things that, you know, they couldn't really control. And, you know, same with the other stuff that they found. They did hypnosis, all kinds of stuff. They experimented on, they teamed up with Canada and it was experimenting on
Yeah.
Canadians. And I mean, but it's just it's so big, that's hard. It's hard to really narrow it down. I mean, the gist of it was to, use drugs on people and different settings and different situations for different things and see how it worked out. But I think that at the end of the day, they found that drugs just weren't a reliable source to use. I'm surprised they didn't do it, which of course we keep talking about. They didn't do more experiments with DMT, but they definitely did. But I'm just shocked they didn't do more.
Maybe they have.
Maybe they have. Well, again, all those, we don't even know how many documents there were that were destroyed. So you might be right.
Maybe that's what they're doing now. Maybe that's
could be.
But what happens? Who knows? Who knows? We got to do DMT and see. But like when I think about like experiences with acid, like I wouldn't think that was a useful tool to get a person to do anything except drink for 14 hours and then go to work at Subway the next day.
Yeah,
like
I agree with you.
That was not the super soldier serum.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, I guess like if you're a partier, like it was kind of it kept you going for a while, but
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I would never kill somebody on LSD or be under mind control.
Well, I get how I knew a kid that he used to actually bully the shit out of me in high school, and then went away to college, and his freshman year took too much acid at a party and jumped out of a window and died.
Oh my god.
Yeah, well, fuck him. He used to make fun of me. But hey, to fuck with me is to fuck with death itself. All right, you found out the hard way.
I'm not gonna yuck your yum. That's not my job here.
but no, I mean, I think some people have a predisposition to mental instability.
They do,
and the use of hallucinogenics doesn't help that. It can kind of snap that rubber band. That's probably maybe on a long enough timeline would have snapped anyway. But
it happens with marijuana and schizophrenia.
Fuck yeah, 100% true. Mm-hmm. And that's something that like I think that people definitely do not talk enough about.
I agree.
Because as much as we want to act like fucking marijuana is this wonder cure that does all these great things, I know from personal experience somebody that lost their goddamn mind because it's still 10 years later is having adverse effects because they smoked entirely too much weed that was way too strong and paddled out into the fucking Pacific Ocean and thought that they were going to get swept into the sea and had the worst panic attack of their life and thought there was fucking sharks in the water and all this shit, sitting on a surfboard, and have never been the same since.
It happens. It does happen, especially when you're predisposed to mental illness, and I think that most of us are.
Right. Well, if it's not genetically, there's definitely environmental stressors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. So, I mean, drugs aren't always a party, guys. Most of the time, but not always.
See, you want to talk about squandered youth? I could have been creating an army of super soldiers and all those basement parties in Blue Island I was in, and all we did was fucking dance to Moby.
Man, I feel that on such a deep level. You're not wrong.
Jesus.
It's terrible, but God, that's so fucking true.
I stared at wood paneling for fucking 14 hours when I could have been creating an army of supermen.
I know. What fucking, well, like you said, wasted youth. That's
right, wasted youth. I guess it's not too late to start over again.
I'll join you. We'll create an unstoppable team. Apparently we just need to read these MK Ultra documents and we'll be good.
No, I think so. The two books to read are the 2007 Secret Lies, which is about the CIA using black magic to harness the forces of darkness.
Yeah, the forces of darkness. Yeah.
And what was did you write down the name of that Manson book? Because that's really popular. Joe Rogan was talking about that.
No, I don't know what you're talking. I'm just a serial killer person, so I'm just.
Oh no! There's a book that came out like within the past 2 years about Manson, the CIA, and MK Ultra.
Oh, there was? I had no
Yeah,
idea.
because the record producer. So when he went into, I mean, you know how when he went into the Tate's house, he was going after. There was a record producer that
Yeah.
used to live there that turned him down or whatever. That guy had ties to the CIA, and they were thinking there's some correlation between all of that. That when this guy was writing this like the reporter was writing a fluff piece about the Manson murders or something, and started looking into it, and he ended up finding all of this shit out. And he was like a New York Times reporter. Yeah, it just came out like a year or two ago.
I
Joe
found
Rogan.
it.
Yeah, Rogan talks about it all the time.
It's called Chaos: Charles Manson, the CIA,
Yes.
and the Secret History of the 60s.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right, because like Jim Morris, the Doors, Jim Morrison, like his dad was like naval intelligence. Did you ever know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of and like I said, Ken Kinsey, who started the whole Grateful Dead electric Kool-Aid acid test shit, he was MK Ultra, because he worked at a VA's hospital as a custodian, and he volunteered for the experiments for money. So there's a lot of really weird connections between the CIA in the 60s and the hippie counterculture movement and everything that was going on in California at the time. And it could have just been all these people were just in one place and stuff started happening, or you start getting into like the really like going down the rabbit hole of like social engineering and like, was this stuff, how well was this stuff orchestrated, or was it just a bunch of people running around not really knowing what the fuck they're doing with all this power and money? Because it was, the Cold War, you know what I mean? We were still dealing with Vietnam and Russia and all this stuff. And, the Central Intelligence Agency was coming to power and all this shit. So, yeah, that Chaos book, that's next on my list. I got to read that soon.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would be definitely down to talk about that a little bit more, in depth. And, the Manson case definitely has a lot of very interesting stuff to it. I'd be more than happy to cover, one of these days. But for today, I don't know. I think we've covered everything pretty well in a very general sense. I mean, if you guys want to, hear us talk about these topics more and more of the more in-depth things when it came to MK Ultra, and well, like I said, at minimum, we'll probably cover the Charles Manson thing and kind of see where that rabbit hole takes us. But there's a lot to it. I mean, there were 20,000 documents. That's a lot.
Sure.
So, but I'd be more than happy to talk about it again. But I don't have anything else to say. Do you have anything else to add here?
Yeah, watch The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Okay, that'll be
if you want a very like easy breezy introduction to like the reality of this stuff. It's got George Clooney, Kevin Spacey, Ewan McGregor, Robert Patrick from Fire in the Sky and Terminator 2, and Nick Offerman from Parks and Rec, and a ton of people in it. It was not directed by George Clooney, though. I misspoke earlier when I said that. But it's a really good, funny movie about the government trying to develop this first Earth Battalion warrior monk fucking thing in the 70s, and it's all true, and it's very funny, and it's the lighter side of this, although they do touch on MK Ultra shit. So yeah, check that out. It's a good primer.
And we'll hear your review of Shin Godzilla next week. So
yeah, definitely.
We'll have movie time. All right, guys. Well, we have a lot of work to do this coming week, obviously. We got a lot of updates that will come off of the news stories next week. I'm not sure what the topic will be yet, but we will figure that out. But otherwise, we will see you guys next Wednesday.